So this past NBA trade deadline was filled with stars getting traded as well as important pieces moving throughout. With the biggest trade in recent memory happening with Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers for another superstar in Anthony Davis. So with how active this NBA trade deadline was, I kind of wanted to look back at some of the biggest trades of the decade so far and see how successful these teams were after their deals. So starting in 2020, there wasn't really any franchise players being moved in this time, but there were definitely important trades that involved pieces that helped multiple teams contend and go to the finals. First with the Golden State Warriors trading D'Angelo Russell for Andrew Wiggins at the deadline, and for the Warriors, this would be their answer for the departed Kevin Durant, who would leave in the 2019 offseason. Did the Warriors end up getting their value back for Durant? In short, no, but they did end up finding the necessary role player in Wiggins, who would end up being a key defender and efficient option for the Warriors that led them to a title in 2022. Now for the rest of the trades that happened in the 2020 offseason, first having Chris Paul join the Suns and Jrue Holiday joining the Bucks. For the Suns, this meant they had a great veteran point guard to lead their young team with momentum from their crazy run earlier that summer in the 2020 bubble. While for the Bucks, they'd get a point guard in Holiday that fit their defensive identity while still being an effective player on offense compared to their last starting point guard in Eric Bledsoe, who was a bit of a liability as a three-point shooter. And both point guards would meet in the finals the very next season, as both the Bucks and the Suns would win their conferences to face each other in the finals in 2021, where the Bucks would come back from an 0-2 deficit to take the series in 6 games. Now for 2021, the biggest trade of that year was easily James Harden going to the Brooklyn Nets, which made a superstar trio with James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving. This catapulted the Nets into championship contention, and whether their chemistry was there or not, while on the court, the three were able to be one of the best teams in the league. But the only problem was that they could not stay healthy during this time, and this would later cost them in the 2021 playoffs, losing to the eventual champion Bucks in 7 games in the semifinals. As of today, the only team that got real long-term value out of this deal would be the Cleveland Cavaliers, as they didn't get to give up too much assets to acquire Jarrett Allen, who at the time in 2021 was just a young defensive big with potential. And Allen was quickly able to establish himself as one of the best shot-blocking bigs in the NBA, as well as earning an All-Star nod in his time with the Cavs. The Rockets were able to get good value out of this deal, as well as they hold draft capital for the now struggling Brooklyn Nets. And as of today, their most recent pick coming from the Nets was the 3rd pick in the 2024 draft, who ended up being Reed Sheppard. Now for 2022 started the same way as 2021, with a big trade involving James Harden again, as the Nets weren't willing to give Harden the extension he wanted, so he was traded to the 76ers, with the Nets taking Ben Simmons in return. Though it was big in the accolades both players have gotten over their careers, Ben Simmons as a player was only a shell of his former self as a star on the Sixers. As Ben Simmons' struggle as a shooter became more of a weird fit alongside Joel Embiid, which devalued Ben Simmons overall, and especially the injuries that came along the end of his 76ers career. And these struggles will continue for Ben Simmons on the Brooklyn Nets, as the Nets did not get the value for James Harden at all. As Ben Simmons most recently finished his time as a Brooklyn Net, more just being a role player that was in and out of the lineup most of the time. Now with Harden and the Sixers, this would not help their playoff success too much, as they still wouldn't be able to make it past the second round of the Eastern Conference. As injuries were a problem, with Joel Embiid facing injuries in both playoff runs in 2022 as well as 2023. Also, coaching played a part into this, as Coach Doc Rivers is known for not closing out series properly and was later fired in 2023. Another honorable mention from the 2022 trade deadline was Tyrese Halliburton getting traded from the Kings to the Pacers for All-Star Domantas Sabonis. And this was a very surprising trade, knowing the Kings weren't a very good team at this point, and they had 2 point guards in De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton, where the more sensible thing would be to trade De'Aaron Fox and become more of a rebuilding team. But for the Kings, at least for the next season, they were able to compete with Sabonis as a very good post player and passer that really made their offense a lot better, being more middle of the pack before to one of the best in the league. Though the Kings would only reach their peak in 2023 when they would be the 3rd seed in the West, but losing in the first round to the Golden State Warriors. But after that season, it would be a steady decline as they would not make the playoffs the next season in 2024 and are struggling to this day to make the playoffs in 2025, more recently trading one of their stars in De'Aaron Fox. Now for the Pacers, this meant they had the opportunity of developing a young prospect in Tyrese Halliburton that had the potential of being a star. And in his time as a Pacer, Halliburton exceeded expectations, becoming a 2-time All-Star in 2023 and 2024, as well as leading the Pacers to a playoff appearance in 2024. So in this deal, the Kings were kind of short-sighted, knowing that Sabonis was a great offensive player, yes, but a bad defensive player, and him combining with their already bad defensive team could only bring the Kings so far once they became a great offense in the league. The biggest trades though of 2022 would go to the Jazz, as they would trade their 2 stars in Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell to rebuild later that offseason. First, with the Rudy Gobert trade, he was sent to the Timberwolves, where he'd become effective in his 2nd season in 2024, being a key part of the Timberwolves playoff run. Though he's played well for one of the best defensive bigs in the league, winning a Defensive Player of the Year award with the Timberwolves in 2024, Minnesota's problem in getting talent around this team is mostly due to Gobert's big contract that he got in Utah back in 2020, as well as the extension that Minnesota gave him in 2024. Now with Donovan Mitchell, he was traded to the Cavs in a deal that would include Lauri Markkanen going to the Jazz. So overall, the Jazz would get some quality players in Colin Sexton, as well as a fringe all-star in Lauri Markkanen that ended up making it one of the 3 seasons he's been there. So the obvious goal for the Jazz was to get off the contracts of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, as they kind of plateaued in the Western Conference, failing to make it past the 2nd round since the 2017 season, where they would start their playoff run. Though the most value the Jazz would get out of these trades would be the draft capital, gaining 7 first-round picks and multiple pick swaps in these trades, and drafting players like Walker Kessler and Keontae George that's shown a lot of potential so far in the league. For the Cavs, this would really work out for them, as Donovan Mitchell was really the last piece they needed to being a contender in the Eastern Conference. From his shot creation, quality team defense, and improved passing, in his time with the Cavs, he really completed a roster that had everything else, with the playmaking from Darius Garland and high-quality defense from their front court players in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And this would continue the Cavs into the right direction, as with Donovan Mitchell, they would be able to make the playoffs in both his seasons as a Cav in 2023 and 24, making it to the 2nd round in 24. And as of the 2025 season, the Cavs have been able to be one of the best teams in the NBA, having multiple 10-plus game win streaks, as well as being one of the first teams to clinch their seeding into the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So 2023 had another pair of star teammates traded around the trade deadline this time around, as this marked the end of the KD-Kyrie era in Brooklyn, where the 2 most skilled players in NBA history wasn't really able to be on the court for many reasons throughout their 4 seasons. Though when they were on the court, they were still a successful team and was one of the most fun duos to watch. Kyrie ended up with the Mavs to team up with Luka, making the finals the very next season in 2024, with the Mavs building properly around Luka and Kyrie with defensive players on the perimeter and the interior. While Kevin Durant ended up in Phoenix beside Devin Booker, where the Suns went a different route in retooling around the duo, as they would later decide in that offseason in 2023 with the aging Chris Paul that would get hurt in that same 2023 playoffs to trade him, the same veteran presence that they've got only a few years prior. The only problem with trading CP3 though was the fact that they did not have a starter caliber point guard after he was gone. And more importantly, the player that they would get back would be an aging Bradley Beal, who was kind of redundant at this point beside Devin Booker and KD, as all of the 3 players are scorers. But this would be one of many reasons why the Suns will continue to trend downwards. As of the 2025 season, the trio hasn't been on the court consistently and have struggled defensively together over those past 2 seasons. The other big trades of 2023 included Damian Lillard going to the Bucks in the offseason, as well as James Harden getting traded again to the Los Angeles Clippers. For the Bucks, this Dame trade means that this is their last opportunity of getting an all-star caliber player to play beside Giannis through trade. With most of the core around Giannis back in 2021 when they won the championship, all being out of their primes, it's going to be incredibly hard for this Giannis-led Bucks team to really acquire talent, especially since the Bucks haven't produced any younger prospects out of the 2020s that has been able to become even a starter caliber player. So the Bucks' future overall is pretty murky at this point in 2025, but their only option was to go all in and try and get the best available at that time for Giannis to compete for a championship back in 2023. Now to go to the West Coast, for James Harden, this would be his third team in 2 years as his quest to get the desired extension continues, as James Harden's frustration with 76ers president Daryl Morey became public in the 2023 offseason. As Harden's long-term max contract was denied, even though Harden sacrificed his contract earlier with the Sixers in the 2022 offseason to give them financial flexibility, which technically isn't allowed. So Harden would end up with the Clippers, and in the 2024 offseason, he would get his long-awaited contract extension. And now as of the 2025 season, they are in playoff contention with a relatively healthy Clippers squad that we have not seen in a while. Now to quickly talk about the 2025 trade deadline, there was a lot of all-stars that was traded during this time, including De'Aaron Fox, Brandon Ingram, and Jimmy Butler, all going to different teams. But the biggest trade was still easily Luka Doncic going to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. Now for the Lakers, they're still staying on pace to being a top 2 seed in the West. But for the Mavericks, they've quickly declined due to an early injury to Anthony Davis in his first game, as well as the rest of the roster getting injured, which include key injuries like Kyrie Irving going down for this season and will probably play a big part into next season as well. So as of right now, I still think for Dallas, this wasn't the worst trade they could have made, but it really makes it a bad trade just knowing that they didn't get enough draft capital and knowing Anthony Davis's injury history even past the Lakers when he was just starting out with the Pelicans. So throughout the 2020s, there's been many shocking and exciting trades throughout the season as well as the offseason. And with a trade as shocking as the Luka Doncic trade, it'll only be more exciting for fans to see which franchise player possibly gets traded next. So what was your favorite trade of the decade so far? Is it possible we see a trade as shocking as Luka Doncic for the rest of this decade? And if we do, which franchise player could that be? Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.